"There's no room in the limo," my cousin muttered as they left for Grandma's funeral without me. I went silently in an Uber. When the will was read, everyone looked at me, and I just smiled. My name is Noah. I'm 27, and I've always been the most reserved member of my family. Not out of shyness, but by nature. I was the one who stayed to clear the plates after dinner, while the others were already in the living room with their third glass of wine. The one who never made a scene, never raised his voice, the one they almost always forgot in family photos. And if they did remember, it was usually with a condescending smile or a passive-aggressive joke about how undemanding I was. My family, especially my cousins, never considered me part of the group. I was more like a stray that Grandma insisted on feeding. My cousin Alex was always the golden boy, the center of attention, the loudest voice in the room. His younger sister, Marissa, followed him like a shadow. If Alex rolled his eyes at me, she'd laugh. If he ignored me at family parties, she made sure the others did too. It wasn't bullying, exactly, it was disinterest. They made me feel like I didn't matter, that I was invisible. The only person who made me feel important was my Grandma Evelyn. She wasn't flashy or loud, she was sweet and thoughtful. She kept candies in every pocket and knew how to make each grandchild feel special, with the exception of Alex and Marissa, who never noticed how Grandma would ask for my help in the garden or save me a slice of my favorite peach pie. Even when I was late for dinners, she and I shared a quiet bond, based on an unspoken connection. I'd help her set up her iPad, and she'd sit beside me with a cup of tea, watching me as if I were the most fascinating person in the world. When I moved out at 19 to start my own graphic design business, she was the only one who took it seriously. The others called it a hobby, even after I landed my first major client. Grandma, however, framed one of my posters and hung it in her hallway. When she passed away, I felt the ground open up beneath me. It wasn't just grief, it was a deep void that made everything else in life seem insignificant, as if the only person who had truly seen me was gone. The funeral was on a Thursday morning in the town where she had lived for over 40 years. I took the week off, booked a nearby Airbnb, and packed my best suit, the same one I wore to my first art exhibition, which Grandma had flown 2 hours to attend, despite her aversion to airports. I arrived early, as always. I expected chaos, but not what came next. I was standing outside the funeral home when a sleek, black limousine, the kind that whispers wealth, pulled up. Alex was the first to get out, with his chiseled jaw and impeccable suit, as if he'd just come from a board meeting. Marissa followed him, dabbing her dry eyes with a handkerchief that seemed more for show than for tears. The other family members filed out behind them, my aunt, my uncle, and even my father, who had divorced my mother years ago and only reappeared for big family events. I gave them a wave, but no one waved back. It was then that I noticed there was one empty seat left in the limo. Just one. Alex looked at me, then turned to Marissa and whispered something. She gave a sideways smile. I took a step forward and asked, "Is there room?" Alex didn't even flinch. "No, there's no room in the limo," he said with indifference as he got back in. "You should get an Uber or something." The door closed. They drove away without a single glance back. I stood there for a few seconds, my hand half raised. My first impulse was to laugh, because who does something like that? But the laughter didn't come. Instead, I lowered my arm, took out my phone, and ordered a car. The driver arrived in 5 minutes. He didn't say much, and neither did I. I just stared out the window, letting the silence wrap around me like a cold wind. I arrived 20 minutes late. The service had already started. I slipped in quietly through the back, making no sound. I didn't need to sit in the front row, I just wanted to be there to say goodbye. But even from my seat, I could see the smug looks my cousins exchanged when they saw me walk in alone. Marissa leaned over to whisper something to Alex that made him give a sideways smile. I didn't react. I just kept my eyes forward, my hands clasped, my jaw tight. I said my goodbyes in silence. I thanked Grandma for every kind word, every gentle hug, every time she made me feel like I wasn't invisible. And then I left. That night, I skipped the family reception. No one texted me to ask where I was. I ordered takeout at the Airbnb, watched one of Grandma's favorite movies, The Sound of Music, on my laptop, and stared at the screen long after the credits ended. The will would be read a few days later at Grandma's lawyer's office. I wasn't expecting much. Maybe a small keepsake, a letter, or even nothing at all. Just something to hold on to, a piece of her. But what happened at that meeting changed everything. The will reading was scheduled for Monday morning, 3 days after the funeral. The lawyer's office was in an old downtown building. I arrived early and waited on a leather bench in the hallway, looking at old photos of Grandma on my phone. The reality of her being gone forever hit me again. Close to 10:03, the rest of the family arrived, late as always. They came in loud, laughing and chatting as if they were headed to a brunch. Alex entered first, with aviator sunglasses on indoors, talking on his phone about a crazy deal. Marissa followed, fiddling with her nails. My aunts and my dad were there too, greeting me politely, though I could see he felt as out of place as I did. When they saw me, the conversations died down for a second, just a second. Then they resumed as if I were just another old piece of furniture in the room. "Didn't know you were invited," Marissa muttered as she walked past, not even making eye contact. I didn't respond. I just nodded and went back to my phone, though my heart was pounding in my chest. The lawyer, Mr. Langley, an older gentleman with a slow, deliberate way of speaking, ushered us in. "Thank you all for coming," he said. "Evelyn's final wishes were very specific, and I intend to honor them just as they are written." He opened a manila folder and began to read. The first part was standard, donations to charities and a scholarship fund. Then, it turned personal. "To my daughter, Helen," he read, referring to my aunt, "I leave my collection of antique teacups and the cabinet where they are kept." Helen looked disappointed. "Just the teacups," she whispered. "To my son, George, my dad, I leave the bronze clock from the mantelpiece and my collection of first edition mystery novels." My dad blinked, surprised. "Wow, she knew I love those." "To my grandson, Alexander," Mr. Langley continued, "I leave the contents of the wine cellar and my gardening tools." Alex leaned back with a laugh. "The wine cellar? Sweet. Grandma always had good taste." "To my granddaughter, Marissa, I leave my jewelry box and the costume jewelry it contains." Marissa blinked. "Wait, just costume jewelry? That must be a mistake." Mr. Langley didn't respond. He simply turned the page and looked directly at me. For the first time, the room fell into a deafening silence. "And to my grandson, Noah." He paused. "I leave the house, all of its contents, the remaining savings in my personal account, and full ownership of my share in the flower business I co-founded in 1978. The silence that followed was deafening. Alex's jaw dropped. Marissa gasped. My aunt looked as if she had been slapped. I didn't say a word. My ears were ringing. "What?" Alex muttered. "That can't be right." Mr. Langley adjusted his glasses. "It is. I was present when she wrote it, and I witnessed when she signed it." Marissa's voice went up an octave. "Are you saying he gets the house? The savings? And the real jewelry?" "I assure you," Mr. Langley said calmly, "all of this was intentional." Evelyn was very clear. I could feel the heat of their eyes on me. The tension in the room coiled like a spring. "But why him?" my aunt blurted out, breaking the stunned silence. "He barely came to family events. He was always in his own little world. He's not even close to us." Mr. Langley looked at me, then at the paper. "There is a note she asked me to read aloud. Would you like to hear it?" Everyone fell silent again. No one wanted to say yes, but no one wanted to say no either. Mr. Langley cleared his throat and read, "To those who are confused by my decisions, the people who showed me love in silence, without ostentation, are the ones who meant the most to me. This is not about duty. It's about presence, about kindness, about loyalty that asks for nothing in return. I don't owe anyone an explanation, but still, I give you one." That last sentence was like a punch to the gut. My aunt's face turned a deep shade of red. Alex just shook his head. Marissa muttered something under her breath. I remained silent. No gloating, no smug looks. I just sat there, looking out the window. It should have ended there. But it didn't. Because some people, when they lose control, become desperate to get it back. In the following days, my family's mask began to crack. The first message was from Marissa. "Hey, things were obviously tense at the will reading. Just wanted to say no hard feelings, slightly smiling face. If you want to grab lunch, I'm free this week." Then my aunt, "We should talk about the house. You're young. You probably don't want the burden of all the upkeep. Maybe we could help you take it off your hands." Even Alex tried. "Hey man, no idea why Grandma did that, but it's cool. If you're thinking of selling, let me know. I have some contacts." I didn't reply to any of them, but they didn't take my silence as an answer. That's when the manipulation escalated. They came to the house uninvited, with the excuse of helping to clean. Marissa claimed she was there to organize Grandma's jewelry box, even though most of the items had already been allocated. Alex waltzed into the wine cellar as if it belonged to him. My aunt started packing up furniture without asking me. When I told them they needed to stop, politely at first, they acted confused, offended, as if I were the one in the wrong. I just thought you wouldn't mind, my aunt said, with her arms crossed. It's not like you're close to the family, Alex added. Are you really going to keep all this? Doesn't seem very Evelyn-like to me. For the first time in my life, I looked him in the eye and didn't back down. I could feel something shifting inside me, something slow, heavy. It wasn't anger, it was something colder. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice, but I began to lock the doors. What they didn't realize was that Grandma left me more than just a house. She left me something they didn't even know existed. And once I understood what it was, the plan began to form in silence, just like everything else I did. When I was ready, they were going to feel everything they had forced me to swallow for the last 20 years. The following weeks were tense but manageable. I kept my distance as always. After the will reading, I had made it clear, without saying a word, that the house, the assets, everything Grandma had left me was not up for discussion. I didn't gloat. I simply lived quietly in the house, tending to Grandma's plants and working from her porch, overlooking the garden I used to help maintain as a child. But behind my back, the whispers had turned into actions. First, I received a letter from the Homeowners Association, a complaint about unauthorized renovations. Then, my electricity was mysteriously cut off for a day due to a change in billing information. When I called the utility company, they told me someone claiming to be the new owner had called to switch the accounts. I had to send proof that I was the legal owner. They apologized, reinstated my account, and that was that. Or so I thought. Then came the real low blow. One afternoon, I was working on a design for a client when I got a call from the flower shop Grandma had co-founded decades ago. Grandma's pride and joy, the business that still bore her name on the sign, Evelyn and Bloom. She had left me her share, something I hadn't yet touched, but had plans to. Grandma always wanted me to use my design skills to modernize their brand. Hi, this is Claire, the voice on the other end said, the shop manager. I just wanted to verify something. We got a call today from Helen, your aunt, and she said you'd decided to relinquish your shares in the business and pass them along to the family to look after. She said she'd be signing the paperwork soon. I froze. What? She said it was your decision, Claire repeated, sounding hesitant. She showed us a scanned email from your address. It seemed a little strange, to be honest. Didn't sound much like you, so I thought I'd just confirm directly. I immediately opened my email. And there it was, a message sent 2 days ago, supposedly from me, to whom it may concern. I, Noah Morgan, hereby relinquish all shares and rights to the Evelyn and Bloom flower business effective immediately. My Aunt Helen will act on my behalf regarding all future matters. Please comply with her instructions as needed. Sincerely, Noah. But I hadn't written that. I never sent that email. My hands began to tremble. The name in the from field looked right, but something about the formatting was off. A closer look revealed it wasn't even my email address, but one that was similar, with an extra dot and a fake domain. They're trying to steal the business, I whispered, barely believing the words coming out of my mouth. Claire's voice softened. I thought it didn't sound like you. Thank you for calling me, I said. Please, do not accept anything from her. I'm going to get this sorted out. I hung up and sat in a total silence for a long, long time. This wasn't just about disrespect anymore. It wasn't a limo or being left out of a group chat. This was theft. It was identity fraud. A line had been crossed so blatant, so malicious, it turned my stomach. My own family had tried to forge my consent to steal what Grandma had entrusted to me, something she built from the ground up and left to me with intention. And the worst part, they probably didn't think I would fight back. They had seen me as the quiet one for so long. The kid in the corner, the easy mark, the one they could walk all over and expect a polite nod in return. But that version of me, he died the day they shut the limo door in my face. The next morning, I forwarded the fake email to a lawyer I had discreetly hired after the will reading, just in case. Mr. Gordon was sharp, to the point, and extremely efficient. He didn't blink when I explained what had happened. This is forgery and attempted fraud, he said serenely. You have full rights to that share, and this email stunt is a clear violation. What do? We file a cease and desist. And if they persist, we escalate. And just like that, a fire began to burn inside me. It wasn't rage, it wasn't revenge. It was clarity. They had tried to erase me from Grandma's legacy. They had underestimated the quiet one. And now I was going to make sure that every fake smile, every manipulative plot, every betrayal behind my back came to light. Not with shouting, not with drama, but with precision, with irrefutable proof, and with a plan so clean they wouldn't see it coming until the very end. Because Grandma hadn't raised a fool. She had raised a silent storm, and the storm was just beginning. After that call with the flower shop and the meeting with my lawyer, I thought I was ready for anything else they could throw at me. But when people are desperate, when they feel power slipping from their hands, they don't get smarter. They get more reckless. The first real blow came the following weekend. It was early on a Saturday morning, and I was on the back porch with a cup of coffee, watching the dew roll off the leaves of the garden. Grandma's garden. It was still full of late-season flowers, and I had been tending to it just the way she liked. It was the only place that still felt like her. Then my phone vibrated. Blocked number. Normally, I would let those go to voicemail, but something in me told me to answer. Hello. Is this Noah Morgan? A woman's voice sounded shaky. Yes, who is this? This is Janet from First National Bank. I'm calling to confirm some account activity that has triggered our system. We've had multiple attempts to withdraw large sums from an account in your name. We've frozen the account for your protection, but we'll need to verify your identity in person. I blinked and sat up. Wait, my savings account? Yes, sir. 2 withdrawal attempts in the last 48 hours. One was flagged as unusual. The other was very close to going through, but was stopped due to a name discrepancy on the signature. My stomach churned. I had barely touched that account. It was Grandma's final savings, the ones she left me in the will. I hadn't used it, not a single penny. I haven't authorized any withdrawals, I said slowly. Not a single one. She gave me the location of one of the local branches. And the name on the withdrawal attempt, Helen Morgan. My own aunt. My own blood had not only tried to steal my share of the business behind my back, but was now attempting to drain Grandma's savings, the money she left to me. Not for a joint account, not for the family, but for me. I didn't say a word after the call. I didn't throw the mug or scream into a pillow. I just sat there for a long time, until the coffee grew cold in my hand and the sun rose higher in the sky. That was the worst I had felt in years. Not because of the money, but because I realized fully that these people, the ones who called themselves family, saw me as nothing more than a resource to be extracted until I was dry. And once they were done, they would just move on, probably going back to pretending I didn't exist. I couldn't even tell my dad. He hadn't spoken up during the will reading. He hadn't stood up for me when they broke into Grandma's house or started packing up the furniture. Maybe he didn't know how. Or maybe he didn't want to rock the boat. But either way, I didn't have him on my side. Not truly. For a couple of days, I drifted. I didn't leave the house much. I barely ate. I sat in Grandma's reading nook in the evenings with her old shawl still draped over the chair, letting the quiet settle over me like dust. Everything felt heavy wrong. But in that silence, something began to brew. Not anger, but resolution. I stopped seeing them as people I needed approval from. I stopped trying to protect their feelings. That phase was completely over. I had always believed in taking the high road. But the high road doesn't mean standing still while others drag your name through the mud and loot your legacy. I began to document everything. Emails, voicemails, the fraudulent bank activity, photos of the cleaning sessions they were holding without my permission. I scanned old texts from Marissa, especially ones where she insinuated I was too fragile to handle the pressure of an inheritance. I found an old voicemail from Alex from when Grandma was in hospice care, laughing about how she probably wouldn't even remember where her will was. I created a folder called Evidence on my desktop. Every night, I added more. Then I started meeting with Mr. Gordon more frequently. We drafted a cease and desist letter with teeth. We reviewed the bank's internal records and flagged the forged withdrawal attempts as potential fraud. I quietly filed a police report. Helen wouldn't be arrested overnight, but the record would exist. A paper trail. One she wouldn't see until it was too late. I also contacted Claire at the flower shop again and asked her for a full record of communications from anyone claiming to represent me. She sent me a folder full of suspicious emails from Helen from a secondary account, posing as me. Even one from Marissa asking to update the payroll structure. They had been planning something bigger than I had realized. They didn't just want the house or the money. They were trying to erase me entirely and reinstall themselves as the rightful heirs to everything Grandma had left. I still hadn't told them I knew. I still smiled in the family group chat, which they suddenly re-added me to, when Helen posted a photo of some cousin's baby. I still responded to Marissa's messages with short, polite answers. I let them believe they were getting away with it, because if they thought I was clueless, they wouldn't see what was coming. And that was the only thing that was keeping me afloat through that abyss of silence, isolation, and slow-burning betrayal. The knowledge that I wasn't powerless. The knowledge that Grandma had left me more than just things. She had left me trust. And I was finally going to show them what happens when the quiet one stops being quiet. Something shifted the moment I let go of the idea that I owed them kindness. I wasn't raised to be spiteful. Grandma always said, don't fight fire with fire. Build something so bright they can't ignore it. I used to think that meant being small and polite. But now I understood what she really meant. Power doesn't come from pleasing people. It comes from owning who you are unapologetically. So that's what I did. The first step was the house. I made it mine. Not in a loud, showy way. No marble countertops or massive renovations. Just quiet, deliberate improvements. I stripped the old wallpaper from the entryway and replaced it with a deep blue shade that made the space feel warmer. I fixed the loose floorboards myself. I replaced Grandma's flickering porch light with a soft amber lamp that she would have loved. Every night I turned it on at dusk, like a silent signal to myself that I belonged here now. This wasn't just a house I inherited. It was my home. Then came the business. Claire and I met for coffee. She had been running the day-to-day of Evelyn and Bloom since before Grandma got sick, and she was good. Really good. Smart, detail-oriented. No patience for drama. She had been skeptical when Grandma first told me I would be taking her share. But after what Helen pulled, Claire was firmly on my side. I want to rebrand, I told her at that first meeting. The website, the social media, the logo, everything. Same heart, new face. She smiled. You're the designer, right? Let's do it. Over the next month, I threw myself into it. I refreshed the Evelyn and Bloom brand with a soft, modern color palette. I hand-drew a new logo based on one of Grandma's favorite flowers and built a brand new website with online ordering, same-day delivery options, and a weekly blog showcasing bouquet styles. Claire handled the logistics. I handled the visuals. Sales doubled in 6 weeks. We started getting orders from out of state. A local wedding planner featured us in a post. A home decor Instagram account shared our bouquets in a post that went viral. I kept it a secret. No big announcements to the family. No arrogant updates. I just did the work. And as my confidence grew, so did my distance from them. I didn't go to the next family barbecue. I sent a polite text, hope you're all doing well. I'm buried in a design deadline. When my aunt posted a photo of a new car with the caption, treat yourself when you've earned it, I didn't respond. I already knew she was panicking. Her fraud case was moving slowly but steadily. The cease and desist we had sent had locked her out of the business entirely, and the bank was still investigating the forged withdrawal attempts. I kept it all quiet, legal, and airtight. The quieter I got, the more they fell apart. I heard through the grapevine, mostly from Claire and some acquaintances, that Marissa was furious about being cut out of Grandma's jewelry. Apparently, she had tried to sell some of the costume pieces she did get, only to be told at a pawn shop that they were worthless. Alex, meanwhile, tried to be friendly again, texting things like, you were always the creative one, man. Knew you'd do well. I didn't respond. I let them feel the silence. I started walking differently, talking differently. Not in an over-the-top way, just with more confidence. I was no longer seeking their approval. I was no longer waiting for anyone to see me. I saw myself. I began to land bigger-name clients for my own design work. With the flower business doing so well, I didn't need the extra money, but it felt good to build something again. I launched a small online shop selling botanical-themed art prints. They sold out in a week. I donated a portion of the profits to Grandma's old church, discreetly and in her name. The next time I visited the cemetery, I brought a fresh arrangement of lilies, her favorite, and gently placed them by her headstone. I sat on the bench nearby and told her all about the rebrand, about the growth, about how Claire was doing, about the porch light and the garden, and the way the morning sun came through the kitchen window. I'm okay now, I said softly, dusting off her name. You didn't make a mistake. And I knew, deep down, she already knew that. By the end of that month, Mr. Gordon had compiled enough evidence to move forward on multiple fronts. He advised patience. The legal process moves slow, but it's certain. And I agreed, because I was in no hurry. I had something they didn't. Peace. They had houses full of tension, social media feeds full of fake smiles, credit cards full of purchases they couldn't afford, trying to prove something to people who didn't care. I had a home. I had a business. I had myself. And quietly, but surely, I was building the kind of life they could never take away, because it wasn't handed to me by status or by noise. It was earned in silence. But power like that doesn't stay invisible forever. Sooner or later, they would hear just how far I had come. And when they did, well, they wouldn't be the ones holding the cards anymore. It happened on a Tuesday. Claire and I were finishing up the quarterly inventory for Evelyn and Bloom, sitting in the upstairs office. The sunlight filtered through the old window panes, which were covered in flower dust. Business had been steady, better than steady. And the holiday season was coming up. We were planning a full line of gift boxes and maybe a pop-up booth at the winter market. I found something you might want to see, Claire said, closing her laptop with a click. She grabbed an envelope from the corner of her desk. It's from a real estate agent. It came through the mail, addressed to the shop, not to you directly. The weird thing is, it's about your house. I raised an eyebrow. What kind of agent? The kind who doesn't check property records before making bold offers. I opened the envelope and read the letter. It was from a company called Greenfield Acquisitions. Sleekly designed and professional in language. And right in the second paragraph, it said, as discussed with Helen Morgan, we understand the property at 14 Rosewood Lane is part of a family estate currently being evaluated for sale. I stopped reading. Helen. Again. She was trying to sell my house behind my back. My jaw tightened. She hadn't just tried to steal Grandma's money. She hadn't just tried to forge my shares in the business. She was actively offering the house to developers, assuming I wouldn't find out, or worse, that she could still convince someone that she had control over Grandma's property. I looked at Claire. She's still pretending it's hers. Claire nodded. But she made a mistake. These letters, they're paper trails. This company will have records, emails, notes from meetings. And, just like that, a door opened in my mind. Because I knew something Helen didn't. A few weeks prior, Mr. Gordon had mentioned that the fraud and forgery cases we were building were solid but slow. The legal system crawled. But if we found intent, if we could prove a premeditated action with a financial incentive, that changed everything. This could be what we need, I murmured, reading the letter again. Proof that she's actively trying to profit from my inheritance while she's under investigation. I scanned the signature. Thomas Vicks, Senior Acquisitions Agent. Then I noticed a date and time for a property evaluation visit written in small print at the bottom. Friday, 11 a.m. at my house. I stared at the letter. She had scheduled the visit without asking, without verifying, without my permission. She was sending a developer to my front door to walk through my home as if it were a product on a shelf. That was the final piece. I wasn't just going to stop her. I was going to use her own greed to expose it all. By Friday morning, I had everything ready. I called Mr. Gordon and filled him in. He agreed. This was the moment to act. He drafted a legal notice confirming my sole ownership of the house and warning any third parties that they were being misled if they entered under false pretenses. I printed it and put a copy on the front door just in case. But I didn't cancel the visit. I wanted them to show up. To see who really lived there. To realize they had been dealing with a liar. At 10:55, I brewed a pot of coffee and took out a plate of pastries from the shop. Grandma always said, if you're going to make a point, be polite. It makes people more uncomfortable. At 11:02, a black BMW pulled into the driveway. A man stepped out, impeccably dressed in a gray tailored coat, with a leather folder under his arm. He looked around, a little confused, then knocked on the door. I opened it with a smile. Mr. Vicks, I presume. He blinked. Oh yes. Is Helen in? Not today, I said, gesturing for him to come inside. She's speaking to the owner, Noah Morgan. He paused. His mouth opened a little, then closed. My apologies. I was told. I know what you were told, I said calmly, offering him coffee. But it was a lie. This house was legally bequeathed to me. Helen has no authority over it. And if you check your records, you'll notice she's not even on the title. He didn't take the coffee. He just stood there, visibly uncomfortable. That's not good news for your company, I imagine, I added. Especially if you've already begun to negotiate. He fumbled to open his folder, likely to verify documents or salvage some part of the meeting. That's when I handed him my folder, the one Mr. Gordon had prepared, complete with notarized proof of inheritance, the cease and desist filed against Helen, and the pending fraud reports. I'd suggest you talk to your legal department, I said, my tone still polite. You might want to reconsider doing business with someone who is currently under investigation for attempted fraud on an inheritance. He didn't stay long after that. I watched him from the window as he made a hurried phone call the moment he got to his car, likely to Helen. Good. Let her panic. That night, I went back through the records of everything she had done since Grandma passed. The visits, the messages, the fake documents, everything was in the folder now, all time-stamped. But now I had outside proof. Companies she had lied to, people she had misled, actions she couldn't take back. And I wasn't going to stop there, because I had also learned another thing. Something she definitely didn't know. Grandma had owned an undeveloped plot of land, a small parcel behind the house, technically part of the same property, almost useless for decades. But now, the city was expanding. Developers were offering huge sums of money for nearby lots. I found a note from Grandma hidden in one of her gardening journals. This land will be worth it one day. If you get it, don't sell it fast. Wait for them to come to you. And they were already starting to. 3 different offers had come in since I inherited the house, and I was going to wait. I wasn't just sitting on a nice house and a thriving business. I was sitting on leverage. And if Helen and the rest of them wanted to keep digging their hole deeper, I would let them, because now I had everything I needed. The documents, the witnesses, the motive, and the timing. They thought they were playing chess, but I was playing a slow-motion checkmate. And the next move was mine. The call came a week later. Mr. Morgan, it was Mr. Gordon, my lawyer. We have what we need. If you're ready to move forward, I would say now is the time. I was ready. For months, I had endured the manipulation, the forged emails, the stolen bank information, the attempted hijacking of Grandma's business, the effort to sell my house, my inheritance, right out from under me. And I had said nothing. I had smiled, nodded, played the quiet one, but I wasn't quiet anymore. It started with a single letter sent by a certified mail to Helen's address. Marissa got one too. And Alex. Inside was a formal legal notice outlining their actions: fraud, impersonation, attempted theft, harassment, and unauthorized interference with an inheritance. All backed by documentation. All signed and notarized by Gordon's firm. It wasn't a threat. It was a warning. A final chance for them to back down before things got ugly. They didn't back down. Instead, Helen called me. I let it ring twice, then picked up. Noah, she began, her voice high and breathless. What the hell do you think you're doing? I didn't say anything at first. I just let the silence speak. Are you seriously going through with this? She snapped. You're going to ruin our entire family over a misunderstanding. Is that what you call it now? I asked quietly. Attempting to forge my name, steal from my accounts, lie to real estate developers, and impersonate me in an email? All of that is a misunderstanding. I was trying to protect the inheritance, she said. That house, Grandma's things, they weren't for you. You were barely around. I almost laughed at the irony. Funny. She didn't think so. Her voice shifted then, from anger to desperation. Look, if you go through with this, you're going to drag the family into court. Do you think you're ready for that? All that attention, you're not built for this. And maybe she was right. The old me wasn't. But the me that she created with her cruelty, he was built for exactly this. I don't need to drag anything, I said calmly. All I have to do is let the truth come out. The rest will happen on its own. Then I hung up. The next day, Mr. Gordon filed the first formal complaint. Fraud and attempted theft related to the forged business emails. He had secured statements from Claire, timestamp screenshots, and metadata from the fake messages. The flower shop's financial team filed a letter confirming the attempted payroll manipulation. Within 2 days, Helen's access to any business-related accounts was permanently blocked. Her email address was blacklisted. A notice was sent to every vendor and partner she had previously approached under false pretenses. Professionally, of course, with a neutral tone. But it was clear that her game was over. Then came the bank fraud. The forged withdrawal attempts weren't just unethical. They were illegal. And thanks to the flagged transactions and the bank's internal records, we had timestamps, voice logs, and identity discrepancies, all linked directly to her. The police had already filed an incident report weeks ago. Now they had what they needed to move forward. A detective contacted me for a follow-up. Do you want to press charges? He asked. I didn't answer right away. Then I remembered all the nights I sat on the porch alone. The limo pulling away without me. The silence in the group chats, the smug smiles, the fake lunch invites, the way they tried to wipe me from Grandma's legacy like I was a stain they needed to clean. Yes, I said. I want to press charges. The house was next. The real estate company, Greenfield Acquisitions, was more than willing to cooperate once they realized they had been duped. Mr. Vicks, the man who visited my house, filed a formal affidavit outlining the interaction and Helen's false claims. It turned out she had already provided them with a forged, signed letter of intent to sell. They were furious. Their lawyers contacted Gordon and offered full documentation in exchange for not pursuing legal action against them for negligence. We accepted. That gave us the smoking gun, intent to sell a property she didn't own, using falsified documentation. And finally, the public fall. I didn't intend to make it public. I never wanted that. But news like this doesn't stay secret in small towns. When the fraud charges were filed and the shop started getting questions from customers, Claire took the lead. "We should say something," she said. "Not the dirty details, just enough to clarify who's in charge now." So I wrote a statement. It was brief. Following an internal audit and a review of recent events, Evelyn and Bloom is now under the direction of Noah Morgan, grandson of Evelyn herself. All previous management outside this role has been removed due to unauthorized actions. We thank you for your continued support and look forward to serving the community with the same heart Grandma Evelyn always brought to her work. It was shared on our website and posted discreetly on social media. Marissa commented within 2 hours. "Wow, so vindictive." I didn't reply, but our clientele increased by 15% that weekend. Alex, meanwhile, tried to be clever. He posted a photo of a new bottle of wine with the caption, "Funny how some people think silence is weakness." I blocked him, letting him shout into the void. The last thing I did, the final bit of punctuation, was to visit the county office and finalize the registration of the land parcel behind Grandma's house. Remember the one she said to wait on? It had recently been rezoned for mixed-use development. I met with a small architectural firm that offered to lease it, not buy it, and build a greenhouse cafe there. They offered a generous long-term contract with profit sharing. Grandma would have loved it. I signed the deal. Then I took the first check they issued and walked straight to the bank. Not a single dollar came from their world. Everything I had, everything I was building, came from me and the one person who truly believed in me from the start. They didn't see it coming because they never saw me at all. And now they couldn't look away. The outcome wasn't loud. There were no court showdowns or tearful apologies. It was quieter than that, more surgical. The way truth often is when it's armed with patience, documentation, and the right lawyer. The fraud charges against Helen were officially filed 2 weeks after the final affidavit from Greenfield Acquisitions came in: financial fraud, forgery, and impersonation. Nothing splashy enough for the evening. News, but enough to show up on a background check. Enough for her to lose the part-time accounting job she had been clinging to. Enough to get her credit frozen temporarily and disqualify her from ever applying for a business license again. She tried to play it down, of course, claimed it was a misunderstanding, a technical error. But when friends started asking why she hadn't shown up to her volunteer committee or why she was no longer involved in the church fundraisers, the cracks became visible. People talk in small towns and they remember. Marissa didn't fare much better. She worked for a boutique marketing firm in the city, a job she would brag about at every family gathering. It turned out they weren't thrilled to find her name tied to an ongoing fraud investigation. Even if she wasn't officially charged, her connection to the forged business emails and the attempted payroll manipulation was enough for her to be quietly let go. She posted vague Instagram stories about haters and betrayal, but her polished influencer smile no longer reached her eyes. As for Alex, he tried to stay out of it, pretending none of it involved him. But I had no interest in punishing him. Life had its own way of handling people like him. He ran his lifestyle on the edge. A fancy condo, a leased car, always chasing something shinier. When word got out about the legal drama involving his family, a few of his high-profile clients pulled their investments. Quiet exits, no drama, just fewer phone calls, fewer meetings, fewer invites. He texted me one more time. "I guess you got what you wanted. Hope it was worth blowing everything up." I left him on read because the truth was I hadn't blown anything up. I had just stopped fixing what they kept breaking. Grandma's house was peaceful now. I kept the garden alive. I planted a new section with the first check from the cafe land deal. Lavender and honeysuckle. The porch light still came on every night. The smell of fresh flowers still wafted through the halls. The flower shop was thriving. Claire got a well-deserved raise. We hired 2 more part-time employees to help with the holiday rush. We held our first community wreath-making workshop indoors, and people were lined up outside. Someone brought a photo of Grandma, printed from an old newspaper article. They placed it on the counter with a small candle. "She'd be proud," Claire said, watching the flame flicker. I nodded, feeling the weight of that truth settle in my chest. Grandma didn't just leave me things. She left me faith in myself, and no one could steal that. Weeks later, I received a formal letter from the bank. The fraud case was closed, and Helen's name was officially flagged across multiple institutions. They enclosed a copy of the report for my records. A neat file of printed lies turned into truth. I placed it in a drawer, locked it, and then did something simple. I went to the closet, pulled out the suit I wore to Grandma's funeral, the one I had worn alone after being left behind in a limo full of people who now couldn't look me in the eye. And I took it to the tailor, had it fitted, cleaned, pressed. Because that chapter was over. And the next time they saw me, it would be on my terms, at my pace, under my name. They thought leaving me out of a limo would be my ending. But it was the beginning. And when the will was read, and they all turned to me in stunned silence, waiting for a reaction, I didn't say a word. I just smiled.